1, so let's get started. Let's get started here. First item is approval of minutes for the 22nd of April, 2021.
So moved. Second.
All right.
Give it to Tracy.
Tracy, and then Mayor Matt. All right, approved. So then we'll move to next up. Michael, are you going to want to do the marina redevelopment part first, or are we going to let Ashley go first?
I'm just going to briefly do a marina redevelopment update. This is identical to the update that I just gave to your other committee, municipal facilities. And essentially what's going on the land side is that we're working very closely right now with our consultants to complete the request for qualifications that we'll be sending out. Hopefully I think the target date is mid-June at this point. And we'd like to get moving with that. Primarily it's looking at ways that we can create a situation where a developer could help us with the marina steps, and at the same time construct buildings to the north of the steps, either boutique hotel or some other functional use that would also include retail options, dining, beverages, whatever, as part of the development. So we're excited about that. I think that's going in a good direction. I think that it's astonishing when you look at the city of Des Moines, the amount of public investment that we've put into improvements to the marina and to other portions of the downtown and the city, the proximate development of the Boyne Creek Business Park, some of the multimodal transportation options we've created, the infrastructure that's being developed right now between 509 and Sound Transit. So there's a lot of really positives to the story, but just wanted to bring you up to date on where we are with that, and we'll keep you informed as we move forward. So unless there are questions on that, we'll go to our other subject of the evening, which is food trucks. And so we're going to have Ashley do a brief presentation. As we kind of reviewed this, I think we had a number of staff involved in some meetings, looking at kind of where we are, where we could be, where we'd like to get to, what are the challenges and what are the requirements that have to be met. I think basically it came out rather simplified, and I hope that you'll see that in Ashley's presentation. But and this won't take a long time, I'm sure. It's a beautiful evening, other when it's not raining. But at any rate, I'll turn it over to Ashley right now, and she can kind of summarize and show you some of the materials that have been developed relative to food trucks. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Good late afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashley Young, and I am the Events and Facilities Manager for the City of Des Moines. I appreciate the opportunity to present to our Mayor and Council and Economic Development Committee, and also our city staff. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, how's that look, everybody? Excellent, thank you. So several years ago, I started here in about 2019, and we had a food truck pod program going. It was occurring on Thursdays, and it kind of fizzled out. Food trucks are quite mobile, so you have to really have a good connection of people to get consistent vendors here. So when the pandemic happened, we supported the farmers market who was not able to have their own food trucks, and it kind of reinvigorated this program again. Since then, we've had several community members, including the owners of the quarterdeck, ask if this is a program that we would be able to bring back again. And here is our pilot program proposal to do so. So in this presentation, I'm going to go over the brief history of where food trucks started with the city, some program details about how we can continue to move forward again, some benefits and challenges of having a food pod here at the marina, a bit of a summary of the program, the steps that can be taken in order to have mobile vendors here, and then I'll take any questions you have. So as a brief history, the food truck began in 2017 in an effort to generate more foot traffic in the marina. I believe Fish Basket came here and was here 7 days a week. And they had a pretty great turnout in a way that they have been a pretty prominent food truck in our area. I know that they frequent the farmers market and everybody's very familiar with their business, and they have been pretty successful in their own rights there. We also wanted to support businesses such as the Quarter Deck, Ranger Tugs, anybody who would have business down here and maybe would have foot traffic or people who might be hungry in a quick pinch. In addition, so in 2020, as I said before, we reestablished the food truck to help support the farmers market. Because of the COVID restrictions, they were not allowed to have their own food truck vendors. And so we were able to place them, since the marina properties operated by us outside of the farmers market. For about half of the season, we were able to get that in place. Here are some of the details of the program as we will be moving forward with it. The program will be supported by the Events and Facilities Department. It'll be overseen by myself, but it will be largely managed by our new Events and Program Assistant. That is a position that'll be new to this department. We have done some interviews and we hope to have a person in place in the very near future. The goal is to have the operation run May through October. As we've talked to several of the food truck vendors, the rainier seasons or the inclement weather times can be a little bit of a challenge for them. So especially during this pilot year, until we can get some traction, we'll just focus on the May through October seasons. Obviously, we're getting towards the end of May at this point, but we do hope to have it up and going as soon as we get that program assistant person in place and operational. After talking with businesses such as the Quarter Deck, we wanted to have it run 5 days a week. Monday and Tuesday in the marina is pretty quiet. However, on Wednesdays, we do have programming. We'll have the Quarter Deck does monthly music sessions on their property. And in the future, we will have summer concerts and other programs like that on Wednesdays to support. Still not finalized if we're going to have summer concerts this year. However, if we could get this program in place, we can have that established for the future, and it'll already be going strong. Thursdays and Fridays, especially on beautiful days, tend to start getting busier here at the marina. And so those are 2 additional days that we would like to have food trucks. On Saturdays, we do not want to step on the toes of the farmers market, and they are allowed to have food trucks this season. And so we will have a shortened time period from 3 to 7 p.m. and then on Sundays from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. again. As I've been doing research for this program, I have found some potential partners. The Washington State Food Truck Association could be a really great partner. They offer food truck placements. They are membership based. They work with food truck vendors, and those are their members, but they do location placements. They work with cities such as Bellevue and Everett to do their placements. They also offer some studies if that's something we'd be interested in, and we can talk to them further about what a partnership would look like for us and them. Other partners could be Serving the Future. Serving the Future is a nonprofit organization, and they do a fight against student hunger. I was actually approached by them to see if we would be willing to have some of the food trucks that they work with who would offer a portion of their proceeds to go towards their nonprofit group. I to me, that really opens the door for the type of events that we could do with the food truck program. We could work with nonprofits, we could work with music-based professionals, we can do cultural-based events, and I think the opportunity there to have several different types of programs within the food truck pod is definitely ready for us to take advantage of when we are ready for it. There are some benefits and challenges to having food trucks, as I'm sure some of you have heard with other cities trying to do food truck programs. It's not always that easy. We'll start with the benefits though. It is convenient access to food and beverage at the marina for both our tenants and our park patrons. It engages the community at the marina and the beach park for future opportunity of programming, such as food events like I was talking about earlier. It generates foot traffic for current and future businesses at the marina, such as Ranger Tugs and Quarter Deck and other businesses that might come down here as the redevelopment occurs. It supports existing programs that take place in the waterfront zone, such as summer concerts or theater in the park. It supports small businesses in the mobile vendor industry. It is a very tricky industry to work in if you are changing your locations daily. So it's always great when there are locations that are consistent so that they know that they can have placements. And then it would boost and support existing businesses in the downtown district. It would bring people down here that might not normally come to the downtown area so they could see what's happening, and then they could go up towards the downtown district and see other opportunities, retail, food-based places to go. Some challenges with the program could be that there's not quite enough foot traffic to support vendors. And that's really been something that I've heard a lot as I've been talking to these vendors is how many people do you have come down here? And it's kind of one of those, what do you put first? Do you get the people down here first, or do you get the food trucks down here first? And so that would really be an effort that we'd have to create relationships with these vendors to make sure that they feel like we can create traction for the program, more people would come down, and it would open doors for different types of food trucks to come here as well. It could take away potential patronage from existing food-based brick and mortars in the downtown district. That's something that I have heard, and that could be a challenge as they've already faced many difficulties in the last year. But it also could enhance what they're doing, as we've seen other food trucks in the city have been able to open brick and mortar facilities because of the patronage from the marina itself and being a part of the farmers market. The funding to support marketing and staffing, could be a big challenge. We've had a lot of support from city staff to try and make this assistant position available, but the marketing aspect of it can also be a big challenge. We got to get the word out. We have to let people know that it's here, not just to the people that would be consuming the products, but also to the vendors so that we can get a pretty regular circulation of people. As a pilot program, we will not be taking any fees collected to support that staff time this year. That can be reassessed down the road. However, there will be some fees collected for business licenses. We are exploring reducing the cost of those city business licenses to support the food truck vendor industry, since we do know how much of a challenge it is. So participation for the food trucks is easy and can be done in some basic steps. A lot of these steps are already required by the state and the county, so we're just incorporating them into our process, and we're trying to make it as clear and concise as possible so that these vendors can know exactly what to do and where to go. Step one would be to get a business license from the city of Des Moines. That can be done online. They can even do payment online, and then we can go in on the back end and make sure that everything is correct. Once they have that business license, they can send that receipt into my department, and that will kind of start the process for us to generate a concessionaire agreement. Once that concessionaire agreement is created, which is step 3, they will also need in place a permit from Seattle King County Public Health, an International Fire Code permit from South King Fire and Rescue, automobile liability and commercial general liability insurance and a COVID-19 safety and compliance plan at this time, just to make sure that everything is being handled in the way that the state approves. With the fire code permit, I heard this week that South King Fire is trying to make it a little bit easier for some of these food vendors so that they might perhaps accept a permit from Seattle Fire as an inspection, and all they would have to do is provide that. It takes away a step of them having to get their vehicle inspected, but we'll find out more about that in the future. Once the concessionaire agreement is created and we have all the documentation in place, we just start picking dates. We would like to allow for 4 dates a month for vendors, since we have 20 days that we're working with. If there's more opportunity for people to have more dates, there's vacancies, we are happy to sign them up. But the idea here is that we have enough places so that several different types of vendors can come in and join our food truck pod. And that more or less does it for my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
I saw you both at the same time. Tracy, Councilmember Buxton, sorry, and Mayor Pina. Will ladies go first? So Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Chair. So Ashley, great presentation, and I'm excited about the opportunity for these food vendors to be able to come into town. I'm seeing positive responses already from a couple of them. People around town help the marketing. It's pretty interesting. They get out there and post right away pictures of food and thumbs up and all that. So my questions have to do a little bit of logistics. So it's called the food truck pod program. So, but I'm getting the impression that it's not like a pod or a group setting. That could you define pod and like the parameters of locations? Is it, for example, is it anywhere in town? Can they just go park on 16th, or do they have to park in a commercial zone? And is it just the Marina District, or is it right down only at the Marina or downtown core? Can you?
Currently, our focus is the marina, and then expanding to the beach park in the future. We're going to focus primarily with this particular pod with properties that are owned and operated by the city. In the future, I know we have discussed looking at our current code to see what opportunities exist outside of these specific properties. But as we're getting this process underway and streamlining it, our focus is really going to be the marina, the beach park, potentially Redondo, and potentially the activity center.
Okay, so when somebody secures a date, do they also secure a location? For example, sometimes there might be a car show down there, there might be an art show down there, there might be a concert. So does it mean when they must park over by the bathroom, or they must park over by the harbor master's office? So do you see what I'm saying? They have
absolutely
a certain location they have to park.
So we're happy to work with the existing events that happen, and we can be flexible since this is space that we manage ourselves. I do actually have, and I'll pop, I was kind of prepared for this question. I have some existing maps of locations that I've worked with our harbor master on to make sure that they were appropriate to have trucks there. And I'll just pop this one up in the share screen real quick so that you can see it. Excuse me while I get it formatted. So we have about 6 different places in the north lot here that we've identified as appropriate locations for these food trucks. We would essentially assign them a number. Now, I do not think we will have 6 food trucks during the beginning of this program. This is just us looking long-term as far as all of the identified locations that they could be. So when they sign up and they pick their date, I or the assistant, the program assistant will assign them a location based off of this map. And if there are other events going on, such as the car show and the like, we can definitely make adjustments there.
Okay, so with your permission, Chair, I do still have a few more questions for follow-up. Is it all right if I keep going, or do you want to share with the mayor here?
Let's give Mayor Pina and
Okay.
Matthias had a comment as well. So
And then
let's
I
move on
got
and
more
we'll
questions.
come back
So,
to you.
okay, thank you.
And maybe it might be something that if it's lengthy and it's a laundry list, Councilmember Buxton, you might just want to do it offline. I think, Mayor, and not the way we'd go with this, or just use up the whole time,
But
or
just-
what do we
Well,
want to do?
it depends. Let's,
keep
I mean,
Just
I,
let's
I,
keep going and
you're right, Chairman Nutting, we would normally go that way, but if we have time, it makes sense. I think I'm actually dovetailing off Councilmember Buxton's, one of her questions, so I just have the one, and that is, so when one of these vendors gets a business license in the city, does it allow them to, I mean, I realize it's for this particular pod approach in the marina and so forth, but is that license also good? Should there be an opportunity in Redondo, or should there be an opportunity like we have up on Marine View Drive? Does that license still apply there, or do they have to get a different type of license for that?
If anybody feel free to correct me. I do believe it allows them to operate throughout the city. It's the concessionaire agreement that makes it so they can operate at the marina or the beach park.
So I'd like to kind of add on to that. Unfortunately, Denise is here. But the idea is, as we were doing this analysis for you, there's a very clear distinction between being in the public domain and being on a right of way, facing or close to private property. Because the critical issue that comes up that we really didn't go into too much, and it doesn't come up a lot in the marina, at least at the moment, is all the issues related to access, impact to roadways, ingress, egress, where do people park, how do they get to the food truck, all of that. So there's a significant number of considerations when it's on or close to private property. And I'll let Denise kind of maybe delineate those a little. What we were focused on was the process of getting food trucks primarily onto city-owned land, which would be the marina, which would be down in Redondo, which could be a few other places. So we don't want to oversimplify it. It's not like, here's your license, go forth and vend, or whatever food trucks do, sell their food. But Denise, do you want to speak a little just to some of the things you guys would be looking at relative to permitting this?
Yeah, so for example, if somebody were wanting to site or put a food truck on a commercial property that may already have another business, that business that's at that location typically has parking, solid waste, and other aspects that are meeting the requirements for their particular business. So it may be that in some cases they may have excess parking that is strategically located that they could potentially put a food truck at that location. But in many other instances, they may not have the room, they may not have ADA accessibility, proximity to restrooms. There's a number of aspects that we have to review too. And so it is much more challenging on those types of projects, as well as on vacant land, because typically if it's just a piece of raw dirt, there's usually requirements for surface water and other aspects. But to keep it simple, I'm not saying it can never happen. It's just we do have to review for compliance to our zoning requirements and access.
So Denise,
issues.
as always, you provide me with the depth of information that there's no way I'd get unless I was talking to you. The point that I was trying to get at is, it sounds to me like, yes, the license would allow them to function anywhere in the city. However, that doesn't mean that you could function anywhere in the city. There are zoning considerations, there are health considerations, there are there are other considerations, but the license is citywide.
So
Well, my
if I can-
understanding from, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So it's not strictly speaking true. So this project you could sort of think of as an exception from the normal process for people who have food trucks on the right of way or at another private property, something like that. We still have our mobile and itinerant vendor licensing code that covers those sorts of situations. And there is a separate license for that. So if you just wanted to be out on the street, if you wanted to be, for example, at the Chevron up at 240th, you have to go through the normal licensing process for that. And I believe that does take, you may have to go through planning for that, and you do have to get the inspections. So this is a special program that is specific to city-owned properties that we have a separate agreement that covers all those restrictions and has additional requirements for indemnification and insurance to protect the city. But so this would cover you for if we have locations at the marina, if we have a location down at Redondo, if we have some other city-owned location, you'd be able to use it any of those. But if you wanted to go away from the city program and to a third-party location or the right-of-way, you'd have to go through the normal process.
And what would that other license be called?
I believe that's the mobile vendor license. Is that right, Denise?
Yeah, it's mobile and itinerant is what I believe it is called.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's actually two different kinds of licenses under Chapter 557 of the DMMC. One is for sort of mobile locations where they just stay there essentially. But there's also ones that actually, just drive up for the day, then for the day, and then go somewhere else.
Yeah, the former one is a stationary vendor.
And we may want to look at updating that code to be more food truck friendly in the future, because I believe the code was put in place in 1999 and not updated since. So it may not be the most friendly to the new generation of food trucks wanting to operate at private companies, go to the office park and feed the people there, what have you. But that's a different conversation.
Okay, well, and that answers my question. I'm sorry, Denise, you had another comment? I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I think that's fine.
Very good.
Oh.
Mayor, any more questions?
I yield back to Councilmember Buxton, who sounds like she has a plethora.
Okay. Councilmember Buxton.
No plethora, just a couple more. So in regard to location, when the farmers market has a group of food trucks, they're all gathered around in one location. So they have a central place for eating, garbage, picnic tables. So just a question about one, this pod, can they double their location? For example, if they pull into and they make an agreement with the farmers market, they want to sell food during the farmers market, and then they want to participate in this program after that on the same day, the Saturday, is that possible? And if you've got a grouping of food trucks, are you flexible? For example, let's say 3 of the food trucks want to also operate during the farmers market and after. Do they have to move their truck to a new location, or can they stay? I guess I'm kind of wondering a little bit about more the pod idea, centralizing food into a court idea instead versus spread all around. You might have a real good reason for doing that, so I'm not sure.
It is not our intention to create a court type of atmosphere. Like the intention is not to make it similar to what you would see in Portland. It would definitely be more spread out and intentionally so because we do have so much vehicular traffic. So I'm hoping that answers that question there. With in regards to the farmers market, I unfortunately have not seen her market plan for 2021 as far as her mapping goes. So I can't answer that question in full for this year, but in theory, it is possible that they could stay in their spot if they were to vend after the farmers market is complete. That has a lot to do with the way the market's set up though, because the tear down process for the market does require a lot of moving pieces. So it might be best that they relocate in order for them to be out of the way for those people that are breaking down their booths for the day and still have people be able to walk up to their trucks.
Okay.
It's not off the table for somebody to vend at the market and then vend after the market, but it's more than likely not going to be the case, particularly this year, just because of those moving pieces. But we can always reevaluate for future years and see what works best. That's why we're doing it as a pilot program so that we can definitely explore the best ways that we can go about making it work.
Okay, and then one more question. Is it possible to make for advertising purposes, make the information shareable on a community page or a public page so that we can engage the community to help spread the word, make the posts somehow the advertising shareable?
So we do have a Facebook page and we already have a Facebook page and an Instagram, excuse me. And in 2020, I did share several times over on the community pages when there were food trucks available. When we get that assistant person in place, it's going to make our efforts towards marketing greater because then we'll have the capacity to create the marketing the posts and the images and the content so that we can get them on the pages. Right now, the capacity in this department is on the very, very slim side. So once I get some people here, we can definitely start pumping that up. And I love sharing on the community pages. People are really wonderful about sharing, you know, in addition. And we get a lot of traction, even though we don't have the program going, we still get a lot of traction currently.
Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ashley. Just to kind of fill in a little bit, you know, this is not going to be a typical year for many reasons, not the least of which is COVID and how that evolves. And the fact that there's going to be some very significant construction activities on the marina floor. And so I think it's important to keep in mind that what we're doing here and what Ashley's done, I think, a really good job of summarizing on the public side is putting in place the steps necessary to arrive at a place where it's easier, more accessible for food trucks to operate. And toward that end, just so council knows, we've dedicated some staff, some additional staff to Ashley to help her with this process. So I think the commitment of resources by the city shows our sincerity and seriousness in trying to help facilitate food pucks as a viable, feasible form of, resource for our community. So just so you guys know, that was kind of the basis of the discussion. And so I think we'll only see it grow as we go forward, but we may not see it at the maximum point, this year and perhaps next year.
Thank you. I've just got a few quick comments. Thank you very much. What a great presentation. It's been talked a lot about in the community. I get approached all the time of what happened, why aren't they there? Is it too difficult? And I think streamlining this and getting it back up and running is incredible. I don't want you to get discouraged over this year and possibly the beginning of next year, because we're at unprecedented times, and especially as Michael Mathias said, with the construction that's going to be happening, although albeit later, it just very exciting. And It will. It might be few trucks to begin with, but it'll take off. There is huge interest, and I suggest that you make sure that when you get ready to post or whatever post it's going to be, include the council on it, because we're absolutely, at least I am, I'm excited about it. I'll get it off to my life engineer, my wife, to make sure that it's taken, and she'll repost it and hundreds of people see it. So we'll get that. We're behind you 100. I'm behind you 100%. I can't talk about the council, but we're behind you 100%.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Council or staff, is there anything else?
There's not, Mr. Chair. I think that concludes our presentations.
Wonderful. Mayor Matt.
I just wanted to say, I think you said it well, Councilmember Nutting. That was an excellent presentation, and I really want to thank, everybody who put into effort in on that. Ashley did a great job. Denise, I appreciate the additional information. Matt, the same thing. It is my hope that Ashley, as you work through this, I understand you got to focus on this program to get it up and running now, but I think anything we can do to make food trucks, I think we, per Matt Hutchins' recommendation, and maybe you and Denise and Matt could work together to make sure that our code is, as friendly as possible. I think we have a little time though, because I understand the pod concept, and I know that we have brick and mortar business and we need to balance all that. So I think focusing on city property, because that gives us Redondo, it gives us Marina, it gives us it gives us the activity center. It gives us there's still a lot of location based on that. So I think we have a ton of opportunity. So I just want to say, wonderful presentation. Thank you, everybody. It's great information.
Thank you very much.
All right. I think that takes us to the end. If there's nothing else, we'll have our next meeting third Thursday of June.
That's what it looks like.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks. Nice job, staff. And everybody have a safe 3-day weekend. Take care, everyone.
Cheers.